All right, now in other news making headlines this week, the State Security Agency has a new boss. Minister in the Presidency, Mondli Gungubele, will now assume political responsibility for the intelligence unit. This follows President Cyril Ramaphosa's decision last year to scrap the Ministry of State Security and move responsibility for that agency within his own presidency. To discuss, we're joined now by Professor Anthony van Nieuwkerk from the Wits School of Governance. He served on President Ramaphosa's high-level review panel into the State Security Agency. Professor, thank you for being with us. So the President making good on this plan that was announced in August. The context for that was that there had been unrest in the middle of the year, police seemingly caught unawares, the police minister saying one thing, he hadn't seen an intelligence report, the SSA minister saying something different. It seemed to be a mess. Does the news that Minister Gungubele now heads the agency bring you comfort?
Yeah, so good evening and thanks for the opportunity. It's a much needed move, in my view, to ensure that there's proper political oversight of the functions of our civilian intelligence agency. And I'm also comfortable with the idea that it's situated in the presidency at the moment, particularly because of the context which you just briefly mentioned a minute ago. It is true that that the security sector in its entirety, from defense to intelligence to policing to justice to home affairs, etc., to oversight bodies, finds itself in a difficult situation. It's untransformed in the sense of offering professional services to the decision makers. So it's almost as if the security sector is in crisis. And indeed, I think it's the right move by the president to make sure that there's some form of accountability, which means Parliament can call the minister to come and explain what is happening to state security. Yeah. But I hasten to add that this is not a situation that I think is sustainable for the long term. There needs to be a deeper thinking around checks and balances to ensure that political abuse doesn't creep back in the use of this very powerful tool of the state.
You've touched on something, because the State Security Agency is not only untransformed, but this is the agency that should protect us all, was reportedly used for nefarious political purposes over and over again. What do you think is the state of the agency right now?
It's difficult to say as an outsider, because by its very nature, a lot of its activities are secretive, happens behind the scenes, and is protected by several legislation. But what we do know is that the turmoil that we've discovered when we conducted the high-level review appears to be ongoing. You will know that that the panel made several recommendations, of which some have been implemented, which is a good thing. But the more important implementation issues, in my view, remain behind. It might be, I'm speculating now, that the president and the current administration is really so caught up in the political survival of the ruling party that the priority given to reforming the intelligence services are now of a secondary nature, which will be regrettable if true, because this year we'll see a lot of political action. And again, given our history, it's important to make sure that we have a professional service, well structured, well trained, and properly overseen in my view, by a strong portfolio committee in Parliament, by an autonomous Inspector General of Intelligence, by a functional NICOC, a platform for decision-making around intelligence and national security. And then, of course, I think we lack a proper national security plan that will help us understand the role of defense and intelligence and policing, etc., and so on. These are the outstanding issues. These are the outstanding issues, unfortunately.
We're running out of time, so I understand there are a lot of outstanding issues. You've laid it out. But just in terms of the new boss himself, we saw visuals on the screen there, Minister Gungubele. Yes. Is he up to the task? Do you agree he does have an impeccable reputation.
So the first point to make is that he's close to the president. He's a minister in the presidency. So he has the full support of the president. And they, if the relationship between the president and this minister and the deputy and the national security advisor breaks down at any level, at any time, then the country is in trouble. So I'm convinced that this is the right decision at the right time, provided, of course, that Minister Gungubele, and hopefully is listening to our interview tonight, pays attention to the outstanding issues which we need to address this year in order to find a balance so that we have a professional service, well controlled and accountable.
I also hope he's listening. Thank you very much. That was Professor Anthony van Nieuwkerk from the Wits School of Governance.